Takis slept soundly as his dreams revived his spirit. He was flying over the river towards the sea. The wind that rushed around him was no longer cold, but he could see the icy brown waters pass below him during his flight. The sun was just breaking the horizon into a fiery red glow. It was a beacon, calling him to the sea. He saw some gulls accompanying him on both sides of his dream flight. Takis was elated to be in the company of such skillful flyers. He looked ahead and saw a tiny green and gold ship resting there on the beautiful deep blue sea. The next thing he noticed was him standing on that ship's bow, staring at all the different colors that came from the reflection of the rising sun on the water. It had been a long time since he could dream like this. Takis felt something pushing on his belly. Just then his eyes opened up to see the inside of the galley where he had slept on board the brightest star. Was he still dreaming? Yip! The sound of Victory's good morning greeting proved this part of his dream was real. Takis's body was refreshed once again. The uncertainty of safe sleep was removed by the protection of the green and gold boat where he now comfortably lay. Takis gave thanks to the one that loves him. He never called him by name, as he never knew his name. Well, not in English anyway. Takis sat up, and Victory leapt from inside the warmth and confines of his sea coat. Yip, 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 Victory chanted. Just then the door from down below opened, and in walked Skip. His hands rubbed the sleep from his eyes. It's a good day today, as we are still afloat on top of the sea. Skip's belly laugh brought a brightness to the room. The sun still kissed the horizon with pink hues that dimly lit the galley. Did Victory sleep better in your belly than in the belly of the city? Skip joked. Takis rubbed the sleep from his eyes too. He was not sure that he was yet awake. He was warm and in good company. These things were just a long-forgotten dream to him. Yes, I believe so. How was your rest, Skip? Takis eagerly asked. Well, Skip paused, I sleep better when the brightest star shines in the middle of the deep blue than when she is roped to a dock of this city. Takis saw a longing in Skip's eyes and words. Victory probably has to go out and do his morning business, just like most that come from this city, Skip laughed. Takis did not know what that meant. Oh, Takis realized aloud, and jumped from the bench that was his bed. Come on, boy, he called. Victory jumped and spun in the air. Looks like he's ready for work, Skip shouted. Takis left the galley, and Victory followed close to his heels. They went to the end of the dock where the jungle started its concrete expanse. Skip watched and wondered from the boat. He saw Takis run back and forth as Victory leapt up towards the boy's playful goads. The boy was the dog's focus. Skip smiled a new smile, one that was missing from his face for a long time. It was a half hour or so when Takis and his tail, so to speak, came wagging back into the galley. Takis shivered off the cold that clung to his new coat. Victory did the same. Skip was over the counter once again. The room was filled with the scent of brewing coffee. Takis sat at the table where 2 mugs were placed. The boy noticed one of the mugs had a palm tree printed on the side, and it read, Life's a sandy beach. Just keep it out of my coffee. Takis giggled. He had never seen or been on a beach unless you count the concrete walls that kept the river from filling the city streets with the sea. Skip turned to the table. with an urn of hot coffee and filled the cups. "Sorry I don't have any sugar for the coffee," Skip stated. "That's okay," Takis smiled. "I don't like the taste of sugar anyway." Skip looked at him surprised and said, "Imagine that! I wish there was a pinch for mine, as I could never get used to the taste of this morning fuel to get my engines going." Skip's laughter always filled the spaces in which he did so. Takis noticed his old clothes laid carefully over in the corner where the door to the deck was. He got up from the table and went over to his tattered coat and dug into its pockets. Skip watched him as he sipped his bitter coffee. Takis bounced back to the table much like Victory does following the boy. In his hand, he held 2 sugar packets, and he offered them to Skip with a boyish grin. "You're full of surprises. Thanks, Takis," Skip exclaimed. "You're welcome. Thanks for the bed, last night's stew and coffee, and mostly, thanks for helping me to get Victory from that dark and nasty hole." Takis' sincerity was something Skip hadn't seen in his world of shipping. "You and Victory are welcome. I mean, I did have an adventure doing it, so let's call it even." Skip offered his hand to the boy for a friendly handshake. Takis gripped it with the eagerness and acceptance of a worldly diplomat. The two sat and drank from their mugs. "So I figure you're a rambling kind of man like myself, as you stayed here last night without a mention of getting home before dark. You got a harbor that's missing your anchor, Takis?" Skip's strange question had Takis lost in thought. Some time passed, and a few more sips of the warm drink passed Takis' lips before he started. "I've been on my own ever since I can remember. My dad passed away when I was a young boy. That's when Mom used to tell me, and she..." Takis fell silent. Skip felt the boy's sorrow overcome his joy for a moment. "My mom went away for a long time, then came and took me to a building. Then when I went to a foster home where..." Takis' statement trailed off. The 3 of them sat for some time in silence. Takis took notice of Skip's blue eyes framed with bushy red brows. They were not like the empty stares that the wild ones had, as Takis called them. These eyes were waiting for him to tell of his sorrow. They waited patiently for whatever was to come next from the boy's heart. "A foster home where I had fallen into a storm drain and I managed to get out." Takis replaced his sorrowful pain into a statement of truthful victory. The dog barked loudly, breaking the solace of the moment. Skip sipped his sweetened coffee, then bellowed, "Sometimes the seas get rough, but if a sailor has a good sound boat, he can ride through the storms and stay on the top side of the sea." He once again lovingly patted the table that was an important part of the brightest star. Skip told Takis that he had to get some supplies for the long journey that was to come for him and his ship. He offered the boy to stay warm and to watch over his boat, as he didn't want any landlubbers to come and steal from her berth. Takis didn't know what a landlubber was, but it sounded terrible, and he saluted Skip like a first mate and vowed to protect the brightest star from any intruders, lubbers, or otherwise. Skip returned the salute in recruitment to the young deckhand, turned and walked down the ramp to the dock that led into the city. His whistling faded into the wind and the sounds of the city. Takis ran to the bow of the Star and yelled as loud as he could to the captain, "Don't forget sugar!" Skip turned and replied, "Aye, aye, Captain." Skip disappeared into the jungle. Victory pawed at Takis's leg. "Looks like we got an important mission to do today." "Victory, we gotta protect the Star from those lubbers." Takis smiled with the fire of duty for his beloved captain. Victory barked a loud bark that traveled far into the city, possibly past the corner of Central Avenue and Beale Street. It wasn't long before Skip returned with a small cart loaded with some sacks, boxes, and bags of groceries. He pulled the cart up the ramp onto the deck of the Star. He was met by Victory that came bounding from the front of the boat. He investigated first Skip and then the cart. He sniffed until he barked his approval of all that was brought on board. Skip smiled and asked, "Everything all right with our cargo, quartermaster?" Victory barked twice as his aye aye. Takis exited the galley and reported for duty. "Captain, we had no trouble from any of them lubbers." His look was full of duty. Skip laughed and started to unload the cart. His size and strength made easy work of the sacks of flour, rice, and beans. Takis grabbed the groceries and carried them into the galley. Skip came up from below to get the boxes and was met with a steaming cup of coffee held by Takis. "Here's your coffee, sir. 2 sugars and no sand, just like you like it, Captain." Skip took the mug, and a big swig of coffee followed. "Hey, that's good, better than I can make. You're hired, Takis," he thankfully said. Takis knew how to make coffee. He learned it from a young woman that worked in a small cafe where he would visit to warm himself up on the coldest of days. Wherever Takis went, he had made friends. These friends would always see the boy for his heart and overlooked his needy exterior. They would treat him as an equal in their eyes. They really sought him to be their teacher of the joyfulness that brought him acceptance. They would say things like, "You're special," or "Takis, it's always good to be in your company," and "Thanks for sharing yourself with me today, Takis." Takis never knew that it was his heart that was the gift of his presence. He just assumed that they were doing what was right. He also never understood why others chose to do what was wrong. He was, after all, just a boy in his own eyes. Skip labored in his chores for some time while Takis and Victory waited in the galley. Skip entered the ship's kitchen to a surprising scent. It was the smell of a clean at first, and then the aroma of tomato sauce and the pungent garlic. Skip saw that there was placed neatly on the galley table 3 plates, one in the center with some garlic bread, and 2 plates on either side. The bench seats were loaded with spaghetti. Each place had napkins and mismatched silverware of spoons and forks. "Takis, you can cook?" Skip exclaimed with astonishment. Takis grinned and said, "I learned it from Antonio. He would show me his secrets while I stocked his kitchen on delivery day. I would take out the trash and break down the boxes for the recycling bin. He always let me taste the sauces to tell him if they were good or not." Antonio was a student of Takis also. He learned from the boy how to talk from his heart. He also paid Takis well, and Takis would have the daily special as a tip on delivery days. So he can tell the chef if it was good or not. It was always good, And when Antonio's heart graduated from the school of Takis, his food tasted even better. "Have a seat," Takis said, as he motioned Skip to sit at the bench he believed was Skip's regular spot to sit. Skip sat down, and he didn't know what to do. Takis said, "The garlic basil sauce will be right up." Skip's limited understanding of this boy was far from the truth he was witnessing. Takis turned from the stove with a beat-up saucepan that Skip had long forgotten he had had. Takis ladled a generous amount of sauce onto the piled-high spaghetti, first Skip's, then his own. He then turned and bent down with the pot still in his hand. Skip leaned over the table to see better what was happening. There on the floor was a small teacup saucer with some chopped up spaghetti on which Takis placed a dollop of sauce. Skip's shocked look became a wild smile. "Can't forget victory," Takis shared. Skip returned, "Of course not." They sat down to eat. Victory did not wait, of course. Skip picked up his fork and spoon to eat, for he was hungry, as he only had coffee all day. He started to eat and stopped when he saw Takis sitting there with a fork in his right hand and a spoon in his left with his eyes closed. Takis always gave thanks for his meal, although on the streets he never did so with his eyes closed. Skip closed his eyes and felt sheepish. After some silence, a calm came over the table, and they opened their eyes and began to slowly eat. The garlic bread was buttery and hot, with just the right crispness. The spaghetti was al dente, and the sauce enlivened Skip's tongue to speak praise of Takis' meal. This would be 2 meals shared here on deck of the brightest star. Eventually the plates were empty, and the garlic bread wiped the remaining sauce from them. Victory was curled up on top of Takis' old coat, neatly placed beside Takis on his spot on the bench. Excuse me. Skip sat back and closed his eyes. It looked like he was giving thanks, as Takis had done before the meal. After a short silence, Skip opened his eyes and noticed a glint from the setting sun off of the brass compass that was mounted next to... Excuse me. Skip opened his eyes and noticed a glint from the setting sun off of the brass compass that was mounted next to the navigation area in the cabin in which they sat. This was strange to him, as it has not shined like that since his son had done this as one of his jobs before he left his father's service on the Star. Skip looked around some more and noticed that Takis had been very busy straightening up the entire cabin while he was gone getting supplies. The windows were clean, the clutter was organized, things had been returned to their proper place, and the trash was bagged and neatly piled in the corner. Skip sat in silence. Takis had moved over to the sink to clean the mismatched dinnerware. He was nearly finished when Skip started to speak. "Listen, Takis, I need to be shipping out tomorrow at dawn. I'd like to get moving early as the later day has too many other boats to navigate around. Thanks for the adventures and the spectacular dinner. Also, I see that you cleaned and straightened up the place. You did a fine job," Takis interrupted and said. "Thank you for helping me rescue Victory. I guess I'll be headed out since you won't be needing protection from those lubbers anymore." Skip replied, "No, Takis, you don't understand." Takis turned from the dishes to face Skip. Skip asked him, "Do you need a job?